We'd like to thank the Kent State College of Communication and Information and Robert J. Evans and Catering for sponsoring our keynote presentation today and contributing to another successful Youtoo social media conference. This year's keynote speaker is Manager of Social Engagement and Insights for the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation. Under this title, Danny Brown works to drive the development and execution of the social media annual and long-range plan for the iGaming division. In addition, he is co-author of a book that was recognized as one of the top 100 business books in America by the Nielsen Bookscan. This book is Influence Marketing: How to Create, Manage, and Measure Brand Influencers in Social Media Marketing. Danny is a multiple award-winning marketer and blogger. His blog has been named the #1 marketing blog in the world by HubSpot. He is also well known for his speaking engagements, including at TEDx, New Media Expo, Social Mix, and more. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Danny Brown.
Can you hear okay? This has dropped off a few times already. I'm not good with technology, so I apologise. I was speaking to the audio guys when I was getting mic'd up, and they were showing me this thing, and this, I'm hissing like a snake. This is cool. I always tend to skip too far forward with these things. I have to try to get back, and it's so if any of the slides go way too far forward, I apologise. I'll try to do a tap dance or whatever till we get back to the right one, but that's not guaranteed. I really appreciate being here. It's when Dino first approached about coming here to speak, I would admit I was a bit flummoxed because marketing's my background, and I'm the sworn enemy of PR by that definition. It's like, if you're Bugs Bunny, I'm going to be Elmer Fudd. So it's like, it was interesting. So I was beginning to panic a little bit about what I was going to speak about, because Kent State's got an immense reputation for this course and this education facility. And I was thinking, okay, I'm not in PR. My background was in corporate communications, so there was some PR involved in my background. And obviously marketing, I feel, is very much merged with PR and advertising anyway. So there's very much a crossover. But still, when you've got PR-focused people like yourself that are very smart and very on it, it was kind of nervous to think, okay, what am I going to speak about? Thankfully, hopefully I do this right. Did it just change? No, it didn't. Oh, wait a minute. You got to put it that way, right? There we go. Thankfully, some of you guys might know Ginny Dietrich. She runs a blog called Spin Sucks over in Chicago, and she's got an agency, Armin Dietrich. And I was reading one of her posts maybe 4 weeks ago that was talking about the future of PR and how a lot of disciplines are converging, and how content is coming to the fore, and what PR professionals moving into the space need to be looking to concentrate on. And that's how got my mind ticking about some of the stuff I've been talking about in my own blog and some of the stuff that we talked about here today. So if you want to thank Ginny for giving me the idea, and if I suck, it's completely her fault, because she was the instigator of this talk today. So feel free to give her a shout out. But I mean, PR is changing, and it's great to see. Andrea mentioned it earlier, that it's great to see such a collection of people that can really shape and focus how PR is perceived in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Because at the moment, it's probably got, along with marketing actually, it's probably got one of the least respected professions in the communications industry, or in the business industry. PR professionals have this idea, or this perception, there's a perception of PR professionals, I should say, that it's all about spin, it's all about making things up just to get your client or your news story or your whatever your goal is in front of the relevant people. And we know that's not true. This is why you have educational courses like this led by the people here, and it's why you want to change that perception. And Ginny's an example of that, in changing the idea of it's all about spin. But it's an ongoing journey, obviously. So if you think back to, and this now that I know the sort of age group of everybody here, this kind of is irrelevant for about 80% of you, maybe, I don't know. Unless you watch old-time cable reruns on Saturday nights or something. Who recognises this picture, this group of people? Ah, all right, good. Are you just saying that to be sympathetic? But this is the group from Cheers, obviously. It was a bar in Boston where you went and everybody knew your name. That was the tagline, Cheers, where everybody knows your name. And it's a song, the opening theme song. And to a degree, PR pre-digital, I guess, was kind of like that, where you had great relationships with the people that market you. So you built these relationships up, so they knew your name when you had something to share, whether it was a promotion, a news, a new product launch, a crisis, counter, whatever the reason for getting in touch with that person was, they knew who you were. Ironically, in the UK, Andrew, I can never remember his surname, but he was the editor-in-chief of the Sunday Times. And he wrote a book about his time there. He worked with Rupert Murdoch, who's a very driven dictator kind of boss. And he had a goal for what the Times, or the Sunday Times was going to look like. And their staff was encouraged to take journalists out and get them hammered, or drunk, if that hammered terminology doesn't translate to North America. They get them drunk to encourage a story, get written about the brand or the product. But this whole relationship building of where everybody knows your name kind of ties back to what PR was pre-digital. So I mentioned journalists. Journalists were always a good avenue because journalists don't have to publish a story because someone requires them to pay. It's not like advertising. You're not getting guaranteed content. You're not getting guaranteed space and attention and copy or whatever. So journalists have always been a key area for PR and marketing, and anybody that's in the communications field that has to share a product or story, a news article, or anything about your brand or service, journalists have always been, and they continue to be today, even though a lot of the shift is happening along to online media portals and bloggers are coming across as the new journalists, if you like. What I love about journalists, they're still very much fact-driven. They won't put something out that hasn't been confirmed by fact. Andrea touched on it earlier about the incivility problems where people just put opinion pieces up with no fact behind it. I say it, and the groupthink of the internet, if enough people say it, we tend to believe it's true. Why else would people say that? So journalists are still a key part, and they knew who the PR people were to talk to. Media, TV, radio, news stations like that. Again, if you wanted your message out there in any kind of shape or form, you had a great channel to go to where the message was pretty much controlled. You had an audience that was listening to that one channel, and whatever message went out on that channel, published by the media, was the message that you wanted to put out there. So it was great. Everybody knew that if Johnson & Johnson had a new baby product going out, they could probably see an advert on TV, they could get a news release on whatever the wire services are, there might be a piece on lifestyle and the local broadsheet. So you always knew that there was going to be focused areas where you could get your message out. And then print. I mean, again, it comes back to who still reads newspapers here? See, now we're talking. What do you go online for your news, or how do you get your news? Online. So is it primarily blogs and news sites, or is it Twitter? Is it people, peer connections? It's all mixed. So very few people still read newspapers, so I'm definitely a dinosaur in here. Because I love the feel of print, but it's just nice to be sat on a train and open a big paper. I'm probably annoying to the person sat next to me, so I apologise to that person. But print, so you always had an avenue. The core points here are pre-digital or pre-social media, we always had these areas that we knew we could go to put out a controlled statement or a controlled point of view. And yes, there may be letters to the editor, there may be advocacy groups that could counter that, but unless they were getting pushed into the same publications, or publications that are media outlets that had eyeballs, that message wasn't getting heard. So this is where we could really, we could be ignorant about all the stuff that's happening around us. And this just is, again, when I'm speaking, it'll be primarily, PR for me, marketing is very much the same thing. I know PR does a lot more than us marketers. We're the lazy twin, if you like. But I do see a lot of similarities and a lot of cross-pollination. But we became ignorant because if we don't hear any feedback, and it's great for our clippings, it's great for our reports that we're giving to clients to say, hey, we got mentioned in 100 newspapers, we got picked up by 4 radio hosts, where our TV slots, we think that correlated to the foot traffic that came to our store for this particular product launch. We don't know that, but we can correlate it. So it's great for us because we're getting paid high amounts of fees or whatever you were charging. And the client is essentially happy because all they're seeing is mostly positive press, positive spin, for want of a better word. Problem is, we know that's not the case. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not out there. And Andrea highlighted, I'll probably reference in your talk a lot actually, because there's a lot of great stuff in there. But Andrea highlighted the fact that just because we don't see it, it's not, it's the example you used about the family with the death of the child. If they hadn't been aware of that, they weren't aware it's out there, but that content's out there. So we know that because we don't see something, that doesn't mean it's not happening. And that's the beauty of when digital came along, it kind of changed all this, because the danger with when we're missing out on the stuff that's been spoken about us, and we're in this little utopia of it's all, pink ponies and rainbows, it's all that great stuff. It's not, and that's when the spin really happens, and that's where PR gets its bad reputation. Rightly or wrongly, I'm firmly in the wrongly camp. It's every single industry has got bad examples, and every single industry has got great examples, and some in between. And PR is no different. There's some bad, but there's primarily good PR professionals. The problem is, when we only have one channel coming back at us, or one voice, or one reaction to what we're putting out there, we get lost. We start to believe we're on hype. It's like the guys that get a huge multi-million-dollar record deal, and they change overnight. I'll give you an example, Justin Bieber. So Justin Bieber was a great, sweet little kid. Okay, 16-year-old, seriously, I'm not making this up, you can Google it. But 16-year-old, he broke through in Canada. Usher found him, helped him, helped mentor his career, and he broke through. He was like, he had this little mop top, and he had adoring fans, and he was very polite. Everybody, whenever you watched him on interviews, you always said, his parents raised him right, good on them, because he was a very polite kid. And then, for whatever reason, the last 2 years, because maybe he's coming out of teenage years or whatever, obviously he's very much rebelled. He's countering against that immensely. Because he started to believe, he got away from the people that shaped him. He moved to LA, he broke away from his family. His family were still over in this little town in Canada called Stratford. And he surrounded himself with people that were going to give him what he wanted. Do you want to drink and drive Lamborghinis at 2 in the morning? Knock yourself out, we'll block off streets so you can do that. So when you have that kind of people around you, of course you're going to believe you're on hype, and all this thing's going to start getting out of control, and no matter what people try to tell you to make sure that you go back on the right path, if you hear enough spin and you hear enough of it all the time from the people surrounding you, you're going to go down a path that you struggle to get back from. And that's kind of what's happened with Bieber, and kind of what was starting to happen with some of the PR industry and some of the marketing industry pre-social. But that's the beauty of social. When that came out, and social, let's not call it Twitter and Facebook and whatever, it's essentially just a web. We spoke, the web's 25 years old this year, and essentially social is just the web. There's forums, there's chat rooms, there's private areas we'll never get access to, there's community boards. All that is still social. Email to the degree is social media. It's a multiple interaction between people. But the great thing with social, when it came out, or when digital came out, it disrupted everything. So I'm not a believer of the people that say, not people, I'm trying to be wary of what Andrea says to not pick out people. I'm wary of the mindset that, that says social media levels the playing field for everyone. I don't buy into that 100%. It gives everybody the opportunity to be heard. But if you've got a $10 million budget versus a little blogger in Arkansas, there's a pretty good chance that the $10 million budget is going to get that message far wider than the little blogger in Arkansas. It's great we have the opportunity to be heard and find an audience for what we're trying to say, but the budgets still speak to a large degree. However, it did disrupt things because now brands became accountable for everything they put out there, because you have people that now have that little 2x2 soapbox and can get out there and back it up with facts and resources and point to sites like the ones that Andrea shared that show you the good and the bad, that counter statements that companies are making. When the BP oil spill happened, for example, and BP were putting out all this gumph, that's a Scottish word, I'll translate it somewhere down the line, but BP was putting all this gumph that essentially, it's not as bad as it looks, we're doing the right thing, we're getting it sorted out, and you had all these citizen journalists that were on site that completely countered everything that BP were saying, with videos, with Instagram pictures, with live interviews, on YouTube and streaming videos. And they were showing you the impact it had on the wildlife and the impact it had on the local economy, the community that was around this oil spill. BP ended up having to backtrack and really start to figure out how to get that message that they were trying to get out there in an ethical way, which I know ethical and BP kind of, it's like a juxtaposition, but they were trying to, counter the message that was out there. So the great fact is disruptors are out there, and digital has allowed us to disrupt brands and disrupt messaging and disrupt lies and erroneous statements, which is awesome. This is just this came from Media, I think it was Media Labs or Media Bistro that put this chart together. I think it was at the tail end of last year, so it's not quite up to date. It's probably changed. Well, I know it's changed since then. But essentially, if you look at some of the stats that are on there, you look at, these are just the popular channels as well. There's nothing on here about the rising Asian channels that are, catching up on Facebook for users. The Brazilian channels that are really knocking out the numbers out of the park and how they're countering government propaganda in Brazil. But if you look at some of the popular ones like Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, etc., look at Twitter. It's got like 560 million users with 5,700 tweets every single second. The potential for one of these tweets to knock your brand for six and really, cause a major meltdown in social is huge. It's not a given because with 5,700 tweets going out, what's the chance you're going to see that? But if you've got monitoring software set up and you've got behavioural targeting set up and you've got keyword analysis and text analytics and all that kind of geeky tech stuff, you can laser in on 2 tweets out of these 5,700 or whatever and really laser in and see, okay, what's been said, does it impact us, how do we counter this, do we need to counter it? And so it's really eye-opening to look at these numbers and think that we still have control, or we still can just rely on our journalist friends, or our media friends, or our print friends to allow our story to be told, and nobody's ever going to say anything about it. If you look at the impact that this has caused, you have people like, and these fall within the disruptor buckets. So you have people like citizen journalists. It was a term that came up about 2006, 2007, I think, and I think it was a Wired publication, or a Wired article. And it's essentially people reporting what's happening in their local community or what's happening around them, as opposed to just relying on the standardized and sanitized version that we may get from TV, especially when you look at the likes of, say, Iran or Syria. It's all state-sponsored TV. It's very difficult to get a message, like a non-filtered message, if you're only relying on state-sponsored TV. So the fact that you've got a citizen journalist is really disrupting this whole media channel and how we actually access news. And some of these guys are the bravest people that you will ever meet. There was the next slide which shows you it, but there's some people that are over in the likes of Iran and Afghanistan and Syria and all these places that I could never imagine living in 100 years, and they're there for a reason, to make sure the truth gets out, which is, that to me is what disruption and what digital and what social, whatever you want to call it, is all about. It's ensuring the truth always gets out if people want to find the truth, and it's there for them. But yeah, so you have citizen journalists that create story, don't create, let me rephrase that. They make the story, that's not right either. They have the story, and people pick up on that, and more stories evolve around that. And now you can really have a bunch of opinions to allow you to shape what you think is right, what you think is wrong, is there any middle ground, and what direction you're going to take in your support for however that story pans out. I mentioned Iran before. There's a whole community of bloggers in Iran that essentially risk life and limb every single day, because they're reporting on all the atrocities that are happening, all the human rights breaches, all the stuff that the government is trying to silence, and all the stuff that the dictators that were leading Syria with Bashar, etc. They're getting the stories out there, and it's very difficult to get the stories out. The web is being monitored, IPs are being monitored. If you try to upload something, you're going to run a very real risk of being tracked. But these guys are there every day, pushing stories out to the web to show what's happening in Iran, what CNN isn't reporting, what BBC isn't reporting. All the main channels that feel they have people on the ground don't have people like the bloggers and the media creators that are there today. Influencers. As we mentioned, I co-wrote a book with a chap called Sam Fiorello over in Canada. Influencers have really come into the mainstream, I guess, or the mainstream conversation for communication pros over the last 2 to 3 years. But influencers, and as you'll find when you read the book, and thank you for the sponsors for providing books for everybody, influencers aren't defined by how they're defined today. Everybody's heard of clout and cred and pure index, yeah? Who takes notice of the scores? Nobody? Nobody cares about the clout score? I love this room right now so much. Were you going to raise your hand? Were you going to raise your hand? You were going to raise your hand, weren't you? Yeah. You do? Do you take notice of it? Okay, the door stays closed then. But no, I mean, we always give props to clout for trying to advance how we understand people that can shift messages to a larger audience. The problem is you can't be defined by a score. I can have different interests today from what I have tomorrow, from what I have next week. If I'm trying to impress not anymore because I'm married, but if I was trying to impress a girl that liked Slipknot, okay, I might grow my hair long. Good luck with that. And I might start listening to Slipknot even, because you want to impress someone that you're interested in. Now, that doesn't mean I like them, but clout and social scoring, when it comes to influence, is looking at what you're talking about at that given time. It's not your interest, it's what you're talking about. And the two are different, actually. Just because you're talking about something doesn't mean you're necessarily interested in it. But influencers have become very big disruptors because they have the opportunity to really disrupt a brand message for its target audience. If you're going after, let's say you're going after mom bloggers, so you target a various bunch of lifestyle blogs and mom blogs for moms that have kids between the ages of 5 and 10. So you've got a new toddler bike or a tricycle or whatever that you want to promote, so you get in touch with these bloggers. Now we have other mom bloggers and other advocates within this sphere that knows you've got a terrible product safety recall issue from 15 years ago with a similar model of a bike that you've updated. So they now counter all your comments and all your posts that are going out there and make sure that they're targeting the keywords that people are going to be looking for to get their message in at the top of Twitter searches, at the top of Google Plus searches, at the top of Google searches, etc. So influencers are very, you need to understand what influence does for your brand, your messaging, but you also need to understand what influence really is. And the book definitely shows that it's not what we think of influencers today. It's not the bloggers, it's not the Twitter guy with 100,000 followers, it's not the YouTube channel with 100,000 or whatever. It's a customer. You have to put the customer on. I say customer as a marketer for you guys in PR. It could be anything. Whatever the end goal is, that's who your target audience is. What you have to identify is who sways their decision to the decision that you want to have for your client or product or service. You work back the way and you start to connect with these people that can sway that decision. It's explained in the book. It's a little bit of a mind change. But influence is very much something that you need to be aware of, and they're very much disrupting the way we market or promote our products or get a message out there. And then everybody's favourite, the FTC. I find it funny when people complain about the FTC. We've got our own version in Canada, CASL. It's the Canadian anti-spam legislation, and we've got the Commissioner's Office of Privacy as well. It's kind of like the FTC. In the UK, you've got the Advertising Standards Agency. And for me, the FTC makes sense. They might not be going about it the proper way, and their messaging is confusing as hell, which doesn't help. But at its core factor, the FTC wants to look after consumers, and it wants to make sure that businesses are acting ethically. So for me, anybody that complains about the FTC from a business viewpoint, whether you're a professional blogger, a brand advocate that writes on behalf of a client or whatever, and you're complaining the FTC is making you disclose about something, that makes me question what you've got to hide then. Because why do you not want to tell people that this is a paid endorsement, this is an advert, this is an editorial piece? Why are you hiding that fact? So the FTC gets a bit stick, but they're very much a disruptor. They're trying to change how online marketing, how online advertising, and to a degree, how online PR works in the digital realm. They've always had like the offline version, but now they're really moving into the digital space. So because of that, what happens now? Where do we go now? And you know, it is a bit of a wild west out there because there's so much information out there that tells you best practices, how to get content out there, how to get your message out there, how to attract the audience that you want to attract, how to get the buyers, blah, 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 blah. And it's overwhelming. And who do you trust? You know, I can go to Google, and not so much now since the Hummingbird update, but previously I can go to Google and I can type in a keyword, and if I never go to page 2. I don't know if anybody here goes to page 2 and onwards, but I always get my results from page 1 and I'll look at a result from there, and that's where I'll click on through to check out. But all I need is to understand how SEO works, and I will force my results to the top of the Google results. That doesn't mean I know better than Joe down the street on the topic of hairy cats, because I don't, but I can pretend that I know about hairy cats and get people to click through to my blog, and I've got one picture of a hairy cat and I really spam you. I'm mining your email address, I'm mining your IP address to spam your cookies all over the web. This is what the companies like the FTC and Castle are trying to counter, and I'm a fan of what they're trying to do. I'm not a fan of some of the messaging and how they're trying to do it, but it needs to be done. But because of that, it's made it kind of fuzzy and kind of blurry as to where we go next. How do we as professionals, you know, work in this huge space where essentially the one single tweet, 140 characters, can ruin your brand, you know, and can hit you so negatively it takes you years to recover. And there's a bunch of examples out there. I haven't seen, in all honesty, I haven't seen a business completely destroyed by social in as much that they had to close, with maybe the exception of that weird bakery or cafe or whatever in the US. Yeah, Amy's, that was it. Is it Amy's Cafe? Amy's Bakery? Amy's Bakery. So they never closed because of social, but you do get some examples, but primarily, and as I show further down the line, social tends to have a great outlet for, you know, getting a message out and getting a counterpoint out, but so far it hasn't really impacted businesses in a huge way on the financial side. So if that's the case, where do we go, you know, as professionals to work with that? So the main thing, we need to get with the program. We need to understand what it is we're trying to do, how we can do that, what tools we need to use to understand that, what education and expertise we need to bring on board to make that happen. Because we don't know everything. You know, I'd like to think I know a lot about WordPress, but I don't. I couldn't code to save myself, so I need to rely on software from a company that makes WordPress feeds to keep my site up to date. I was speaking earlier about, I was in my breakout session actually, and I apologise to the people that came to the breakout session having to listen to me for another hour. I'll try and make it up to you with a better song and dance at the end. But I was mentioning that I'd written a post on my blog about Facebook and the new Android update. And there's a lot of privacy concerns about this update. It's essentially, if you don't read the permission settings, it can access your text and MMS messages. If you use Facebook for Android and you've updated the latest version, 4 point whatever, check your permissions, just make sure you've not given access to your text. So anyway, I'd written this blog post, and it started off a great conversation. And this, I think it was, he looked about 15 or 16-year-old kid, came on in the comments, and he left me a comment that I thought was excellent, but I never knew what the hell it meant. He was like saying, well, you need to root your phone and make sure you have XFlash and then do this. I have no idea. I can power it on, I can call my wife, I can send a picture, and I can use social apps. But I don't know roots, and you know, so we don't know, you know, what we don't know essentially. And because of that, we need to understand to get with the program and understand change. I mentioned the Google Hummingbird update. That's been a huge. Who's familiar with the Hummingbird update from last year? So a few people, yeah. Essentially what it is for anyone that's not familiar with it, Google tends to update their algorithms quite a bit to try stop crappy SEO practices and make sure that the best, in Google's view, the best content comes to the fore. So if you're looking for something specific, Google will help you find that thing. The Hummingbird update goes into semantic language. So instead of saying best pierogies in Kent, and maybe that hotel came up, or you know, Bill's grandma's house would have come up a few years back. You could go a little bit further down the line and say, okay, where could I find pierogies without potatoes and just tomatoes? Something as stupid as that. Google will look at the phrasing of that, and the Hummingbird algorithm will look at the phrasing of that and direct you to a various bunch of sites, and will start to learn from your search behaviour, the way you type in words, etc., to bring up the most relevant content for that particular search, as opposed to just being a forward hit and hope this is the best pierogies. because of this update, and because of the way Google is putting a lot of focus onto the content and the quality of the content that's out there, and the authenticity and the authority behind it, now you need to, it goes back to a question from the breakout session, you need to make sure that when you put content out there, if it's not just an opinion piece, you have to be backed with facts. You have to say why you believe this is the case. You have to link to resources, but make sure it's no follow, because then Google's penalising sites that have do follow links. And Google, rightly so, is getting a lot of pushback on some of the changes they've made over the last few weeks. They seem to be going on a bit of a power trip at the minute, which is kind of unsettling. Anyway, that's a different talk. But yeah, so with the Hummingbird update, with the content that you produce, whether it's blog posts, whether it's a new LinkedIn publisher, profile that we now have, whether it's just like a Vine quick upload or whatever, the searches that are happening now and the audience that you're going after has changed from the SEO-led audience. So now it really does come down to your expertise on the topic, or the expertise of your client that you're representing on the topic. And if a question comes in and you don't have an answer to that, that's going to be really, you need to make sure that with the changes that are coming with Hummingbird and with people being able to access comments and searches, etc., you have to know what you're talking about, and you have to make sure that you're consistent and that you're really getting out the message that has to go out versus just putting out fluff to get someone off your blog space. Language of content. Sorry, the screen here's got two screens on it, so you can see what screen you're looking at now and then the one that's coming up next. And for some reason I thought I went back there, so that's why I stumbled a lot, but I apologise. But the language of content. In the book we talk a lot, and I apologise now because we deliberately wrote the book as a very technical book. It's not a marketing 101 book, so if you like quick reads, this isn't for you. Don't sit down on Saturday night and expect to finish it on Sunday morning or whatever. But hopefully you will get value from it because of the way it's written. But we talk a lot about language and the language of content and semantics and text analytics and ontology, and essentially how people interact with each other and how what they're saying interacts with the machines that are tracking this conversation, and how that comes back to us as data sets that we can use. The language of content is really, really key, especially with the Hummingbird update, because if you're putting out a blog post, it used to be you'd write a 500 to 800 word blog post. I know, Bill, you wrote a lot more than that, so this is all your fault actually, that this whole stuff's coming in from Hummingbird. But the language of content, you really have to understand what you're putting out there. And I know that sounds like common sense, but it's not just putting out content that says, okay, we're representing this new car from Ford, and it's great for families with 2 kids because it's got spacious back seat and DVD players and the headsets and the driver and passenger side. And it's green, so everybody loves green. Problem is, what if my kid's allergic to the fuel? What if my kid's allergic to the upholstery? What if my kid's eyes he gets headaches from the angle that he's got to look at the screen that's in the back of the seat? Because that doesn't, that's not something you can certainly plan for to a huge degree. So when you put out content there, you have to be thinking, how much information do we share? How much authority do we have to put over at any given time in a single piece that we put on the web? And how is that going to impact the audience we're going after? What could possibly go wrong? What could actually, kick back and say, well, you said this was great for families with 2 kids. We've got 2 kids and we hate it because to get the car seat in that we bought, it doesn't fit to your specifications from the car seat you designed it for. So I bought this vehicle that, the car showroom made it do this, etc. So you can see the difficulties now where we have to be really focused on what's going out there and really just concentrate on a core message without expanding too much. And if it expands afterwards on other blog posts or across other networks or whatever, that's great. But just understand the language of your audience and who you're going after and what's important to them. Because it's great that your car does this. It's great it gets 36 kilometers on the highway or whatever. But if that makes no sense to me as a target audience, I really don't care how great your car is. I will go to a Hyundai or someone else. Tonality. See, this is why I should look at that screen and not this screen. We spoke about language of content. I'm going to flip past this, okay? Tonality. There we go. I told you, don't give me one of these things. Scots and technology do not mix. No, I'm serious. I've got like claim me like knowledge fame if you want. With technology, I can work in Xbox and I can work a controller to get my Xbox on TV. That's it. My wife's a geek, you know. My 4-year-old son can be watching Netflix. He can grab a controller, come out to Netflix, find Lego superheroes on the actual game system, get that and change the remote to make sure that he's got the right, you know, I'm thinking he's serious. He's 4-year-old. Now, I don't know if that makes us bad parents for letting him do this, but he's, you know, learning. But yeah, tonality and the tone. For me, this is just as important as the actual content itself. Because you have to, and you know this, you need to understand the tone of the message and how that goes out. Because that's going to be key depending on what the actual message is. If it's a promotional message, that's great. Tone, yeah, you can make it happy, buzzy, fun for like a really short-term offer. If it's something like Andrea mentioned before about you know, a tragedy, you can go out and just say, you know, Boston Pie Factory is sorry to hear about our friends in Israel. Hashtag, you know, custard pies or custard treats. It's the tone has to be spot on because again, with the whole semantic changes that Google's put in place, and people are far more switched on now, and they can spot what's just a spin promotional push versus what's very much you know, an emotional reaction and a heartfelt reaction. Who's the is it the jewelry guy? Not jewelry, shoes. There's like a shoe guy that always. Pardon? No, it's a name of a guy. It's the name of a male. No, yeah, I'm going to go and look at it now. Pardon? I'm sorry. I should have had this. It'll come to me, and I'm going to come running through the door at the dessert station. Pardon? No, you know who it was? It was like he's done it twice now, and he's had Kenneth Cole. Yeah, thank you, Kenneth Cole. But so Kenneth Cole is a great example of, you know, where the tone is completely wrong. He doesn't care though, because he's getting sales. People are going into his stores and buying it regardless. But he's getting a lot of negative, you know, pushback and feedback. There's only going to be so long that you can ride out negativity, because unless you've got shareholders that don't care, they only just want the money. They don't care about the ethical side of it and the, you know, what happens to the actual reputation of the company. Then, you know, there's only so far you can go along with getting the tone wrong. The great thing is with tone of messaging, there's some great tools out there that can really help you focus in and laser on the kind of content you should be producing. Atomic Reach is a startup over in Toronto, and they've got a really cool concept of a product where what they'll do is you sign up for an account and you'll set out what your audience is currently and what you want your audience to be. So if you have an audience that's primarily 101 lower through kind of content seekers, but you want to go after a more technical readership to, you know, to enhance your brand in that sphere, they will look at the kind of content you're producing, the wording you're using, the length of the content, the spacing, how that reacts to other content from other publications that are in the same target audience you want to go after. And they'll recommend changes that you need to make while you're in draft mode. So before the content even goes out, they're telling you how to get from a score of 6 to 8, for example, for your content currently, to a score of 72 that's going to get you higher engagement. And it might, you know, it might take you another 10% engagement rate from readership, social shares, commentary, etc. And they're always learning. So if you go in and you can set up, you can see here, you can set up 4 basic areas. You've got knowledgeable, general, is it specialist? I can see the screen there. Yeah, specialist and academic. So you can pull out the 4 different audiences you want to go after and create your content around that audience. You can have just the one blog area and start creating content for the 4 different audiences to see where you get the most traction from and help you, you know, really start to laser in on the traffic you're going after. So Atomic Reach are excellent. For bloggers, you can use their platform free of charge, and you can help get your content out there. For brands and businesses, it ranges from $500 a month to $2,500 a month based on audience size, agency size, users, content, etc. But this gives you an idea of how their scoring system works. So you create the content, it's in draft mode. Essentially, you can either go to the Atomic Reach dashboard, or depending on what CMS system you use a WordPress plugin, a Joomla script, whatever, and they've got some more platform support coming out. But essentially the dashboard is on their site, so you can access it anytime. But so you create content, and they'll look at it for grammar land, the amount of links you've got, external, does it point to authority sources, Does it point to bad links? Does it point to sites that don't have quite the traction that other sites have, and look for different ones. Your audience match. If you want to move from a generic communications blog to a specialist blog and compete against the likes of TechCrunch and Read Write Web, etc., this will help you get to the kind of content that you should be producing. And once you've done that, it'll score and match it, hit publish, and then we've got a bunch of analytics afterwards. And it just really helps you start to create strong content based on the audience that you're going after. So I definitely recommend looking at Atomic Reach. And like I say, the blogger version is free of charge. So if you've got a WordPress blog at the minute and you want to see how this works, if it's worth taking back to your business or clients or whatever, check it out on the blogger version. Ethics, that's always a nice topic to discuss. And it's, again, this is where digital is kind of starting to uphold brands to a higher level, for want of a better description. There's ways and means that we can put a message out there. It's easy, as Andrea was mentioning, it's easy to be negative and poke fun to get a reaction. It's harder to be polite and to get a message across that gets the same level of reaction, because people don't like to write about positive stuff. They love to jump on a negative stuff and pile on. Justin Sacco at Christmas, great example. Yes, the tweet was offensive. Did she deserve that amount of vitriol and hate that came away? No. It's like, I defy anybody to not make a mistake in their lifetime and not, and get that amount of vitriol that came away. And so ethics, we have to be ethical. This is the only way we're going to change the current perception of the industry, whether it's PR or marketing. But the only way to do that is to uphold yourselves to be better than where you could be. I don't know if anybody saw this in the news. It was just last week or just this week actually. This chap here, anybody recognise this story? Okay, no worries. Ernie Gagnon, he's a cyclist. I can't remember where about in the US he is. And he lost his way a little bit. He went into comfort and he got very overweight. He was having a bad time, he was depressed. And for whatever reason, something clicked and he decided he wanted to make himself better. He wanted to, shed the pounds and get in a healthier lifestyle and just not be the person that he felt he was becoming, rightly or wrongly. So he took up cycling and he loved it. It was something that kicked in him that says, I love doing this, I love getting up in the morning, I love doing the kilometres I do. It's something, and he started to be really inspirational with people. He ran a blog, and cycling communities latched onto him because he was this guy that was using their sport to really, for want of a better description, better himself or meet the goals he wanted for himself. And because he was doing that, he was a shining example of someone that made a positive change in their life. This company here, Boombotics, they make speakers for cyclists. So you can attach speakers to your frame or whatever, and you can attach your, through Bluetooth, you can have music while you cycle. They put this Facebook ad. So they took this picture on your right-hand side. They took the picture of Ernie cycling. It was from his Facebook profile. They took a picture of it and they tallied it up with a Boombotic cyclist. And they had the message saying, will you be bombing a single track or putzing down the asphalt? The fire trail, sorry. So one, they took a photograph without permission and published it on their Facebook wall and used it as an ad. Second, they completely went after this guy saying, you shouldn't be on a bike, how dare you be on a bike, and this is what a cyclist looks like. Thankfully, they got hit hard. I mean, people just went after them in a big way. The community that Ernie built up around him were saying, how dare you, this is a guy that's done X, Y, Z. If you look, I know we shouldn't stereotype, but if you go to the team page on the Boombotics website, one of their executives is, it looks like he's at a Vegas convention or something. So there's a couple of bush babes in bikinis. He's got his hands around them. One of the hands is pretty close to the girl. Maybe shouldn't be. But this is the kind of the culture of Boombotics. They're very much of that culture where it's all to look a certain way, have this mindset, have this approach to life. And they felt that Ernie didn't live up to that. Thankfully, this got picked up. Like I said, the community just went after them. They apologised. They've put out 5 different versions of apologies now, because the first one didn't really take responsibility. The second was a little bit better, but it's still not addressing the fact that they stole his picture. So, that for me is not an ethical way to do business. stealing property and then poking fun at someone that's doing better. Disclosure, going back to the FTC and being ethical about what content you're putting out there. This is a post that I did a little while back about a platform called Reads, and at the top and the bottom of the page, it's got a little badge that says sponsored by Reads. So you're meant to disclose everything. FTC mandates to tell you that you have to disclose if you're working on behalf of a client, if you're promoting something on behalf of a client, if you've got advertorials, editorials, etc. You have to make sure that it's shown to be a paid, sponsored, premium content, as opposed to something that's just gone up there. What I like about the guys I work with for that one is called A Network over in Halifax in Canada. They give you this little badge by the brand you're working with. It works in two ways. It works as it's a disclaimer. So as soon as you come into the blog, you know that it's a sponsored post. If you read it, it's meant to be personal opinion, but always be aware it's a sponsored post. But it also tracks analytics, so it works. It's a win-win for both. But if you're working, going back to the disclosure part, this is where it ties back to ethics again. There's a lot of companies won't disclose that they have commented on a blog post on behalf of a client and going on saying, oh, well, I disagree with your review of the BP oil spill because look at them, they're doing their best. And it happens that this is like a junior admin assistant from one of the BP offices in Texas. No disclosure, and that's not an ethical way to do business. That's why, when stuff like that comes out, we're continuously fighting against this perception of the industry as being one that's just full of spin. This was an example. This was unfortunate because this was a blog post based on the same Reads campaign by a PR professional over in Seattle, I think. I know her really well, and I knew that she was doing the Reads campaign, and I read her blog post, and I knew that was like a tracking URL, the one that's boxed up there. I knew that was a tracking URL for how many clicks came from her blog post to see how successful it was. There was no disclosure on the blog post whatsoever. Nothing at the top, nothing at the bottom to say this is sponsored on behalf of Reads. It was just a straight up blog post. So I reached out to her and asked her why, just out of curiosity, you work on the Reads campaign? Yes. Any reason why you didn't disclose? I wasn't aware you had to. So I'm thinking, okay, one, as a PR professional or a communication professional, the fact that you didn't know that is kind of concerning. But two, why did Triber, who ran the campaign on behalf of Reads, why did they not tell you about disclosure? So I reached out, I went over to the Triber site, I logged in, I checked out all their campaigns, I went to their help area and searched for FTC disclosure, and there's nothing there. This is their actual help desk. There's nothing about FTC disclosure at Triber, or there wasn't at the time. This was about maybe 3-4 months ago. I know they've been working on it since. I reached out to the founder of Triber and asked him about it, and he sent me a link to a blog post about an example of how to disclose. And the little disclosure was halfway down the content. So you could have been reading it for 5-10 minutes thinking this is great, I'm going to click through to this product and buy it, not knowing it's a paid advertisement. That just bridges so many ethical questions. It's like you have to disclose, you have to be upfront in everything you do, and almost disclose too much. It's better to disclose too much than not at all, because at the end of the day, it's yourself or your clients that are going to get hit by fines, or in Canada, if you break the castle legislation that's coming in July, you can actually jail time. So, Canadians may be polite, but they really go after businesses that go after consumers. So that's one thing we've got going for us. Leave untouched. One of the things that I used to get annoyed about when I was blogging 3-4 years ago, whatever, when I was getting pitched on to talk about a news release or whatever, I was being given instructions what I should say, what I shouldn't say. And I'm thinking, this doesn't seem right, this isn't fit. If you think of when you first start dating someone, who in here is married? Okay, so wow, okay, it's got a few people. Alright, so when you first started dating someone, it moved, at some stage for whatever reason, it moved from dating to kind of liking this person to engagement in marriage, okay? And there's a reason for that, because you're attracted to the person that they were when you started dating. And you liked what that person was like because of who they were, enough to marry them. So why would you go in one weekend and say, I don't like the way you leave your shoes in the front hall. I've done that for the last 6 years. Why are you now trying to make me move my shoes to the back door? So it kind of ties into the why are people that are reaching out on blogger outreach dictating what you should and shouldn't say. You've gone after this person because they have something of value to you. It might be audience size, it might be expertise in the realm, it might be just the fact that they really connect and tie into the audience of your client, of your brand, of your business. Why would you try and tell them to only write positive stuff about that product? To get them to write the negative stuff, because now you can make a better product and your brand will actually benefit more because they make a better product that will lead to more sales, as opposed to just writing positive stuff about a mediocre product. So please, when you're doing, if you guys are doing blogger outreach or any kind of outreach on digital, don't put mandates down that say you have to say this, you have to say that. Give guidelines as to what you'd love to see, touched upon, but don't force people. Essentially, don't hope that you'll be doing stuff right. Just do it. Just let these folks get on with what they're paid to do by you, and give them guidelines and support them on the way. So when it comes to ethics, don't hope to be an ethical company. It's really easy to be ethical. Think of the things that you would hate to be done to you, either professionally or personally, and try not to do that going back the way. So for PR marketing, I touched on it at the start of the talk, PR marketing and advertising, pretty much all blurring together now. We have PR pros, we have marketing pros, and like I said, I guess I'm meant to be the sworn enemy of you guys, but we're getting along fine, right? So it's blurring now. It's very difficult to tell now what's a PR campaign, what's a marketing campaign, what's an ad campaign. Is there any crisscross? And in a way, that's good, because now we're not focusing on how we can outdo another vertical or how we can outdo another discipline. We're focusing on getting the stuff that our consumers want and getting it to them in the best way with the best message. And if that's a PR campaign, great. If it's a marketing campaign, great. If it's an ad campaign, great. If it's like a grassroots campaign, just as good. This is something I said a talk a couple of years back, where I used to see the difference between PR advertising and marketing. And to a degree, it still holds true today, but advertising wants to screw you. They just want in for the quick buck. Buck, I said, B. Just in case that goes on Twitter, it's like, no, I said B. Marketing wants to do you. So our goal as marketers is to entice you to emotionally fall in love with our product. Because if you do that, there's a good chance you're going to buy it. So we try and instill emotions in our consumer, our target audience. And PR are the poor guys that tidy everything up. So you make sure that you've got a great content going out the way, but you also have to do all the back work. All the stuff that makes sure that we mess up and advertising messes up, your client doesn't get hit for that. And this is why I've got a lot more respect for PR folks than I do for my fellow marketers and for some of the advertisers I know, even though they're friends. But the good thing is, this is all blurring. Like I said, it's starting to change now, and everything is being driven by content. Doesn't matter if the content is on a blog or if it's on a video or if it's on a newspaper, it's still content, but everything is geared around content. One of the biggest content changes in the last 12 months, I guess, is the rise of native advertising, which it's a buzzword I'm not a huge fan of, because it's happening all the time anyway. If you look at your Facebook feed, that's the biggest native advertising platform in the world, because it's all based on relevance to your interest and what information you give up to Facebook. So you create a Facebook profile and you say, I like sports, I like beaches, and I like sun. That's kind of my likes. If the advertisers have done their jobs properly and Facebook works with them properly to target these likes and preferences, you will only see ads that are relevant to your particular likes. So you might see an ad for Costa Rica volleyball tours. I don't know if they do that, but if they did, and I like sun, beaches and sand or whatever, I would sign up for this. And Facebook does that all the time. It interacts seamlessly. People ignore, these little sidebar ads, the marketplace Facebook calls it. People ignore that. You've got about 3 to 4, if even not percent chance of these ads getting acted upon. The ones that drop into the stream though, whether it's on mobile or the desktop version, they're the ones that get real interaction if they're done properly. You look at this one not this one, sorry. So that just shows you some of the options for native advertising. You look at this example from the theme park capital of Australia. This is a news site that had a piece that says, why should you do something every day that scares you? So it wants you to keep thinking, to keep pushing yourself and to stay alive, essentially. Not alive, like breathing alive, just alive, mentally, and thinking of things that can really make your life fun to live. Now you look at this is all from a native ad that drops in. This changed based on what the headline was. This campaign, it had various ones, if you liked fresh, there was there was like a story about fresh fruit. So it put in, salads and really organic fruits as the backdrop. So this changed dynamically, but you can see that if I'm reading a piece that says, why you should do something every day that scares you, and you see a lion staring at you in the face, or you see like whitewater rafting or anything, that kind of ties in with that adrenaline buzz of doing something that scares you. And the fact that you've come to this page because you're interested in zoos or, exciting activities, that's got far more impact to make you click through and check what that message is actually about than, say, something that says, okay, I'm reading about a news piece that says, do something that excites you, buy War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, and read 500 pages a day. That's not going to excite you. That's going to send you to sleep really fast. So for content side, because everything is driven by content now, and because we're looking at the ways that PR and marketing and advertising is crossing in each other, and how disruptors like bloggers and citizen journalists are trying in each other, we need to make sure that it's just seamless and it's relevant and contextual. Get that right, and you've got a far stronger opportunity of having your message being picked up and seen. One of the things to remember as well, there's a saying by a Canadian called, and I'm not picking on Canadians because I think they're awesome people. I only live there. This is just one that's always stuck with me. The medium is a message, Marshall McLuhan said a few years back. And you can kind of flip that to different ways, where the medium, like in this example, the medium of the people, for example, everything is, and Andrea touched on it succinctly in our presentation, everything is driven by the reaction of people around an update or a content piece or a statement, and how that reaction swirls between people is based on how that content will be perceived. Because of that, people are now driving a lot of where we need to go as communicators. This is a novelist, an American novelist. See, not just all Canadian. American novelist, Derek Jackson. I can't recall the name of his book, I apologise, but if you go to his Twitter handle, which you see at the bottom there, you'll get the details of his website, what he's talking about. But this was a great quote by him. I do not trust words, I even question actions, but I never doubt patterns. Because people are creatures of habit, and it's very rare for us to do a complete 360 or 180. 360? No, it'd be 180, because 360 just brings us back to where we started. So people really do 180 and just change their mindsets overnight. It's a pattern that emerges. The more you hear something, the more you might start to question it. The more you question it, the more you might start to research. The more you research, the more you might start to change your way of thinking and seeing that you've been completely wrong about something you thought a lot about. Because of that, it's patterns that we have to keep an eye on and how we adapt to these patterns when it comes to our own messaging. So adapting to critics. Andrea again touched on it. How we adapt to critics or how we respond to critics defines how we're perceived as a brand and defines how we are as a company and as an organisation and just as a person in general. There's various ways to adapt to critics, and critics are getting really smart at getting the pain points and really looking down to them. Just to give you an example, everybody pretty much must know the Chick-fil-A story from a couple of years back. And this is a Photoshop sign, it wasn't a real sign. I never Photoshopped it, it's just one thing. But Chick-fil-A had a very strong statement about rights for gays. They had a big anti-gay statement about rights for the LGBT networking community. And it caused a big stink. Like people were saying we're going to boycott, right? So I mean, you can't tell people they don't have basic rights because of their sexual preferences or their demographics or their gender or their colour of skin or whatever. We should have been moving past this like hundreds of years ago. But we still have these kind of things that we have to deal with. So Chick-fil-A rightly got bashed for this. There was a whole movement came out to boycott Chick-fil-A restaurants. The problem was there was a whole movement came out to counter that, because whether you agreed with Chick-fil-A's message or not, they had built up a loyal brand and a little bunch of consumers around them that when this started going down and they saw people attacking their brand, they came out in support. Whether they agreed with the message of Chick-fil-A or not, they came out and supported the brand. And this is where I mentioned earlier, I've not really seen social media severely impact the company financially. It will happen, at some stage it has to happen, but I've not really seen one at the moment. So Chick-fil-A, even though they got so much negative press, both from the mainstream and bloggers and everything, their sales went up. People deliberately went and they bought, they bought more food than they would normally buy to help get these sales up, but the sales still went up. And that kind of says that if you're you're a PR person and you're trying to work out how do we counter what just happened, how do we counter the negative press around our CEO's statement, sometimes you don't have to. And then do you now filter that message? Do you fan the flames of that message, or do you stand back and let the community take care of whatever the problem was? And in this case, Chick-fil-A continued to be successful, and it pains me to see that, because why would you want to eat at a place that denies basic human rights? But there's always, there's counterpoints to that as well. That's the beauty of humans. We have so many different opinions that not one of them's ever 100% right, generally. And that's the problem. When you get to, and I'm sorry, that's a really generic picture of fans. So, the problem is when you get to that kind of stuff, you now look at, the message is getting disrupted. This is like a chart from the book. It goes a lot more deeper in the book, because I just got mentioned I'm coming up to time very soon. But now it used to be word of mouth was easy. A brand would put a message out, we'd get a recommendation from an influencer, customers would see that, they'd decide whether to buy or not, job done. Digital came along, disruptors came along. Now we've got the same brand message, we've got the same influencer and the same recommendation share, completely changed. Now we have all these customers that are talking to each other. We've got them researching, we've got them on news sites, Quora, etc., validating their decisions. And into that mix, we have to be there with our own messaging to make sure that we're trying to sway them along the right path at the right time. Oh, not the right here. There we go. I mentioned Nimble before. Please do check out Nimble. They give you a 30-day free trial, and it's only $15 a month after that. And it's an awesome, awesome tool set for allowing you to connect with the people and the content that you're after. Look at the likes of Google+. Who's on Google+ here? Got a few people. Look at the ripple effect. The little drop-down tab where it shows you how you posted. Look at the ripples and see what the people that shared that post are interested in. Are they now new advocates or new content providers for your brand? And just start to understand the audience that way. Pulse Analytics is another great one. It's a more enterprise level tool, and I will be getting a handout sheet ready for you guys, so you've got all these resources. But Pulse Analytics is great for really digging down into individuals and how your message and how your business can contact that individual and work directly with them. And again, this is like a chart from the book, but this is where we put the customer back at the heart of the influencer circle and who impacts them at any given time in the decision-making process when they're ready to buy. Is it their friends, colleagues, peers, employers? It might even be a parishioner, you never know. But this shows you, if we were going after the Samsung phone launch, and we want to counter the negative statements about the Apple lawsuit, we can start to look at the people that are impacting the customer's viewpoint on the negative side and make sure they have all the facts. Because in Europe, they never got, Samsung won the case, it was only in the US that Apple won the case, so there's yin and yang all the time to that lawsuit. But I guess, just to wrap up, I think for me, and this isn't just for the PR industry, it's for everybody that's in communications, there's a turf war that we seem to like to have. We've got a little line in the sand here. We like to say, okay, this is PR should go on social media, marketing should go on social media, HR should go on social media, PR should run this campaign, marketing should do this, etc. And we have PR industry agencies combining against each other. Well, traditional is better than digital is better than traditional, etc. This is where the stumbling block is. All this tough war, all this countering each other's work. If we want to move the industry forward and really move forward as professionals, we need to get away from this mindset that we own this. At the end of the day, there's one goal, and that's to make the customer happy. To make the customer happy, it doesn't matter who gets the message out, who provides a piece of content at any given time. It's a customer we have to think about. So essentially, be a penguin. Penguins never ever fight with each other. Right? I never knew this, but according to National Geographic, penguins never fight with each other. You don't get tough wars, you don't get any rabid penguins tossing out in the sea or whatever. So we've all got to just be thinking like penguins, and just get along better and make sure the content and the message is working together as an integrated team to supply and benefit the customer. Because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. And I think I just made time. So thank you.
We're going to forego questions right now. We're getting to one of our most popular events or activities, and that's dessert and networking out here in the lobby. Sponsored, of course, by Robert J. Events and Catering. The keynote speakers will be available out there also to sign books. Danny will be around, so if you have questions out there. So, you know, enjoy dessert, network, get your book signed. And students, if you signed up for the networking mentor program, find your mentor or see Tracy in the back. Back here at 1.